Introduction to perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around a closed shape. The perimeter of any shape can be found by tracing your way around the outside of the figure, adding up each side length until you return to the starting position. If you want to calculate the perimeter of the shape below, I'm starting with a triangle. So I want to start by tracing around my perimeter. So I think that's going to be important to note. So I'm going to start with my 10, then I'll add my 5, and then I'll add my 8. So start with 10, add 5, and then add 8. So my perimeter will be 10 plus 5, which is 15, and 15 plus 8, which is 23. And I also need to make sure that I include my units. So my units are inches. So in order to get full marks on a question that involves perimeter, you need to not only include the value of the perimeter, but also the unit, so what these sides are being measured in. So then I take a look at part B. I want to trace around the side of my object. So I'm going to start with my 3.5. I'm going to add my 1, add my 2, and then add my 4. So perimeter is 3.5 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4. 3.5 plus 1 is 4.5. Let's try that again. 4.5 plus 2 plus 4. 4.5 plus 2 is 6.5. Still have my plus 4. And 6.5 plus 4 is 10.5, but my sides are being measured in kilometers, so I need to include that with my final answer. Please note how I have formatted my solutions. So I'm putting my lines right underneath each other. I'm also doing one calculation per line. And I'm making sure that I'm not forgetting or skipping anything. So really pay attention to how you format your solutions to make them clear and concise and in proper mathematical formatting. So if we wanted to do part C, you would have to actually measure this using a ruler. And this is something that you can do at home. So you're going to measure the sides of your arrow to the nearest 1/10 of a centimeter. So that is to 1 decimal place. And you're going to, after you've recorded the lengths of each side of this shape, you're going to calculate the perimeter together. So I'll let you do this one on your own at home using a ruler. I think that will be very helpful for you. All right. Next, we want to think about how are the shapes displayed on this page different from the first 3 examples? Well, if we look at these shapes, we'll notice that they all have something similar to them. And they're either shapes that have sides that are the same. So these little crosshairs through the lengths of your sides represent that each of these sides are exactly the same. Or they are common shapes that we know, such as a rectangle or a parallelogram. So that's important that we need to know as well. So how are these shapes displayed on this page different from the first 3 examples? These are what we call simple shapes. So we want to calculate the perimeter of each of the shapes in two different ways. So we're going to first do it by adding up all the sides and then using a formula as well. So in example D, we have a square. All of the sides have the same length. That's what this means. So sides have the same length. So normally when I'm finding the perimeter of a shape, I need to add up all of my sides. So this will be 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. So 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 7 plus 7. 14 plus 7 is 21, and 21 plus 7 is 28, and my unit is meters. Now this is one way to calculate the perimeter of a square. Another way is to use a formula. So the formula to find the perimeter of a square is 4s, where s stands for the side length. And 4s means 4 times s. So this is a multiplication between these two. So 4 times my side length, which is 7, and 4 times 7 is 28, and my units are meters. So you may find that using the formula becomes a more efficient method over time. Now we'll take a look at the next side, the next shape. So this was a square. And the shape for part E is what we call an equilateral triangle. So all of my sides are exactly the same. So my perimeter is going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8. Eight plus 8 is 16, and 16 plus 8 is 24, and my unit is centimeters. Now, if I wanted to use a formula for an equilateral triangle, it'll be 3 times s, because I have 3 sides that are exactly the same. And this formula only works for equilateral triangles. It won't work for triangles where the sides are different. So the perimeter is 3 times 8, which is 24, and my unit is centimeters. For part F, I have a rectangle. So normally when I'm calculating my perimeter, I'm taking my 8 plus my 24, because the sides across from each other are exactly the same. So this is 24 and this is 8. So sides across from each other are the same. So it's 8 plus 24 plus 8 plus 24. 8 plus 24 is 32, plus 8 plus 24. 32 plus 8 is 40. And 40 plus 24 is 64, and my units are millimeters. Another way you can calculate the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle is using 2L plus 2W, where the L stands for the length of the rectangle and the W stands for the width. And truly, it doesn't matter which one you label which. So I'm going to call my 24 my length and my 8 my width. So my perimeter will be 2 times 24 plus 2 times 8. So I'm substituting in the numbers in the right spot. So the perimeter, 2 times 24 is 48. Plus 2 times 8 is 16, And 48 plus 16 is 64, and my units are millimeters. You'll notice I did both of my multiplications in one step. You are welcome to do that, or if you wanted to do 2 times 24 in one step, and then in the next step do 2 times 8, you are welcome to do that as well. Part G is what we call a parallelogram. And a parallelogram is very similar to a rectangle, except it's just pushed over a little bit so that they're not 90-degree angles in the corners. So I'm still going to calculate my perimeter the same way I would as a rectangle. So the sides across from each other have the same length. So 3.8 and 3.8 and 4.3 and 4.3. You'll notice I did a single dash for my widths, and I did a double dash for my lengths because these two are the same, but they're not the same as the sides. So my perimeter is 3.8 plus 4.3 plus 3.8 plus 4.3. 3.8 plus 4.3 is 8.1. 3.8 plus 4.3 is also 8.1. So you'll notice again I did 2 steps in one, and that's okay. You can do that. And 8.1 plus 8.1 is 16.2, and my units are meters. You could also use the formula. The perimeter of a formula is very similar to the perimeter, actually the same as the perimeter of the rectangle. It's 2 times length plus 2 times width. Another way that you could write this would be 2 and then bracket length plus width. This is another way you might see the perimeter of a rectangle or a parallelogram be written. So let's use this version of the formula since we did this one up with our rectangle. So my length will be my 4.3, my width will be my 3.8. So I have 2 times 4.3 plus 3.8. 4.3 plus 3.8 is 8.1, and 2 times 8.1 is 16.2, and my units are meters. And lastly, my last shape here, I count how many sides I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is an octagon. An octagon this is a regular octagon, so all of my sides are exactly the same. So I can calculate my perimeter by adding up 1.5 8 times. So 1.5 plus 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 1.5. Whew! All right. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. And 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 plus 3 is 6. And 6 plus 6 is 12. And my units are meters. So that's one way. The formula for a regular octagon, so where all of your sides are the same, is 8, because that's how many sides an octagon has. 8 times S, where again, S stands for this side. So it's 8 times 1.5. And when we calculate that, 8 times 1.5 is 12. And my units are meters. So that is some ways to calculate the perimeter of regular shapes. So these are regular, simple shapes. We can add that on here. Where if we look back at the front of the page, this was not an equilateral triangle. This was a quadrilateral, but it wasn't a typical quadrilateral, so it's not a rectangle, a parallelogram, a rhombus, or a trapezoid, any of those other shapes that you might know. And obviously this was what we call a compound shape, actually, where we have multiple shapes stuck together to create one giant shape. If you have any questions about this lesson, please reach out, send me an email, or sign up for a virtual help session, and I will see you in the next lesson.